G'day, I'm Steve Starling and I'm here in Bermagui on the far south coast of New South Wales to chase what's without a doubt my favourite saltwater game fish, the mighty yellowfin tuna. To me, the yellowfin's got it all. Size, power, good looks, delicious eating qualities, and above all else, the kind of never-say-die stamina that brings grown men to their knees and finds faults in even the very best of fishing tackle. One of the other nice things about yellowfin is their widespread distribution. Here on the east coast, anglers from Cairns in the north down to Wilson's Promontory in the south can go after yellowfin, and over in the west they're available from south of Albany way up into the tropics. You don't need a six-figure bank account to catch yellowfin either. The smart operator in a 4-metre aluminium runabout's got just as much chance of hooking a record fish as the crew of a 15-metre flybridge game cruiser. Over the next 60 minutes or so, we're going to take you to some of the hottest yellowfin tuna grounds in the world and show you how the top anglers catch them. We'll cover the proven rigs and techniques, we'll look at the right gear to use and how to set it up, and along the way we're going to show you some red-hot footage of big fish and multiple hookups. We're also going to show you some of the things that go wrong, even when you think you're prepared for every eventuality. So won't you join us as we go for gold?
There are few more powerful fish in the sea than Tunas albicaris, the yellowfin tuna. With a maximum growth potential in excess of 200 kilograms, a top speed of more than 70 kilometers per hour, and a muscular system designed to produce perpetual motion from birth until death, the yellowfin tuna is truly an awesome opponent for any fisherman. It's hardly surprising that hooking into a large specimen has been compared with attaching a line to a runaway freight train. Big yellowfin tuna will make you sweat, curse, and even cry. They can bring strong men to their knees and reduce inadequate tackle to a twisted pile of junk. Fights with yellowfin regularly go on for hours at a time, and more often than not, the fish wins its freedom, despite the best efforts of man and his space-age technology. There are no easy yellowfin, just tough fish and impossible ones. And for this reason, success in tuna fishing is seen in game and sport fishing circles as the ultimate badge of merit, the gold standard of angling. The quest for this golden standard demands the same kind of dedication and preparation as the pursuit of any sporting pinnacle. And just as the first-grade football team or Grand Prix motor racing outfit must train, practice and prepare, so too must the offshore angler pay meticulous attention to detail.
You're going to make up some traces, John? Yeah, great. That'll cut down a bit of time up there. I'll fill up the 30 with new line, and the drag will be okay on that, I think. So I might just have a look at a couple of the others, and if they're lumpy, I'll take them apart and clean them up.
You guys seen the weather map for the weekend?
No. What's it like?
It's really great. Big high pressure coming across. Should have really brilliant fishing conditions. Really good.
Oh, super.
Have you heard from Log or Chubby up there?
Yep, they're getting fish. The fish are at the island, and there's a few on the 4 mile and the 12 mile, so it sounds really good.
Size?
Big fish.
Big fish. Excellent.
Before any fishing trip, it's vital to make sure that all your gear's in tip-top condition so that it won't let you down when you're on that fish that really counts. And this is especially true with game fishing for demanding species like yellowfin tuna. Now tomorrow morning we're heading for the far south coast of New South Wales to fish in a big game fishing tournament. So tonight we've all come here to John's place to lay all our gear out and go through it all and make sure that it's all in 100% condition, because a yellowfin tuna is going to find any fault in this tackle, especially a big fish. So the first thing we've done is we're going to have a look at how much line is on each reel. We've been fishing with some of these reels now for quite a few weeks, and some of them are getting a little bit low on line. That's because you cut line off at the end of the day and so on. Now any that are too low on line, we're going to pull all the line off them, throw it away, and put brand new pre-tested line on it. So we've always got a fresh line load on the reel. We're going to fill them up under pressure, wind the line under pressure so that it's packed down nice and hard, and so that loose coils of line can't dig into the line load once we hook a fish. And we're going to fill them to within 1 millimetre or so of the rim of the spool, so that we've got every metre of line on the reel that we can possibly get there. And that's going to be between 600 and 1,000 metres of line, just depending on the size of the reel and the line class that we're fishing. Sounds like a lot of line, between half a kilometre and a kilometre of line, but you can need all of that on a big fish, so it's really critical that you do make sure that your reels are full of line all the time. Make it a habit to change your line load at least once a season, and more often if you're fishing really hard. Either pull all the line off and throw it away and put new line on, or if you like, you can just pull the top 300 or 400 yards off, tie a good knot and top shot it, replace the top 300 or 400 yards of working line. If you don't trust your knots, don't do that. Put a new line load on. We've got a couple of different styles of reel here. We've got lever drag overhead reels, we've got star drag overhead reels, and we've got thread line or spinning reels. They're all used for slightly different applications, and they'll all catch yellowfin tuna. But for the big fish, the 50 and 60 kilo fish and larger, you really can't go past the robustness and the smooth drag of a lever drag overhead reel. Once we're happy that all the reels are in A1 condition, and they're all full of nice fresh new line, and the drags are smooth and they're all oiled up, we'll move on to the rods. We'll go over the rods from the tip to the butt and check everything. Make sure that none of the runners have been knocked out of alignment, that the winch seat and the butt are all in line. And then we'll go over and check the runners. If they're roller guides, we'll make sure that the rollers are turning, and if they're not, if they're stuck, we'll take them apart, clean them up, oil them, put them back together. The fixed guides, the ceramic guides, we'll check the surfaces of them for any cracks or rough spots or cuts, replace them if they've got any. And once we're happy with the rods and the reels, we put them together, put the reels on the rods, and then we're going to measure and pre-set all the drag settings for the various line classes.
The drag or slipping clutch of the reel allows a hooked fish to pull line from the spool against a predetermined pressure setting. Without the smooth operation of this function, even a relatively small tuna could snap strong line, and big fish would be completely uncatchable. By using the reel's drag, an angler may gradually wear down his finned opponent until the fish can be led to the boat. The best way to set this drag is to use a set of weighing scales or spring balancers to measure the pressure required to pull line from the reel. Most experienced offshore anglers agree that a drag setting of around 1/3 the line's breaking strain is ideal for striking and fighting yellowfin tuna. In other words, when using 15 kilo breaking strain line, the scales should register about 5 kilos as line begins to slip from the spool. Remember though, this pressure will automatically increase as line is torn from the reel when a big fish runs. For that reason, it may actually be necessary to back the drag off a little as the line load diminishes. With their rigging and tackle preparation behind them, the Seamaster team hitch up their boat and make the long haul by road to Bermagui on the far southwest coast of New South Wales. This port is one of several game fishing meccas, which between December and June each year attract thousands of keen anglers from all over the country, all drawn by the lure of world-class angling that lies within a few kilometres of the scenic shoreline. Some come here to fish in the many competitions and tournaments organised by various clubs and associations during the game fish season. Others come simply to fish for pleasure and to stock the freezer with delicious fish fillets and steaks. Regardless of their motivation, most offshore sport and game anglers start each day here on the prolific bait fishing grounds not far from the harbour.
One of the most important aspects in any kind of fishing is having the right bait. And for the game fishermen, that means stopping here at the bait ground every morning before going out to the shelf or to Montague Island to catch our supplies of live yellowtail and live slimy mackerel. We keep part of our catch alive in the live bait tank, and some of it we put straight on the ice to be used as cut baits. Nothing's wasted. The frames after we cut the baits off become part of our burley trail. This morning they're a little bit slow, but as we put a little bit more burley in the water and start catching a few, they'll gradually come on, and we should get our 15 or 20 that we need within about half an hour's fishing.
With their bait for the day on board, most boats elect to run offshore in search of the clean blue water that pelagic fish such as yellowfin tuna favour. Depending on prevailing currents, this fish-rich water may be swirling close inshore around islands and reef complexes, or running far out to sea beyond the continental shelf drop-off. As the Seamaster crew encounter the inshore edge of the warm cobalt currents, schools of small tuna and frigate mackerel are sighted breaking the surface. Trolling lures are quickly run astern, and almost instantaneously there is an adrenaline-pumping multiple hookup.
Got another one! Woo! And the other one. Oh, the one's full. I'll put going now. Get one again. We're still in the tournament. We've got 4 on. Pop this one on 8, I think. Right. Yes. Keep it there. Pull again. Sorry, Steve. Right now. Oh, that's a nice one. Here we go, 6.
A mixed school of juvenile yellowfin, albacore and striped tuna are feeding on small baitfish over a wide area. And the lure strikes come thick and fast as Seamaster works a wide figure-of-8 pattern around the action. Although not a prolific taker of really big yellowfin tuna in this country, trolling lures such as these plastic and rubber squids, jet heads, psychospeeds and counter heads are extremely productive on school-size fish. And there's always at least a chance of a bigger specimen pouncing on one of the flashing, bubbling artificials. Most of these small fish are tagged with a special plastic marker supplied by the New South Wales Fisheries Department and returned to the water alive. One day, they may be recaptured by other anglers or commercial fishermen, and thus add to our store of knowledge on the life cycles, growth rates and migratory patterns of these enigmatic, pelagic or open water species. However, not all of these juvenile yellowfin and school albacore are destined for release. These tuna make for excellent eating, and a few select specimens will be bled out and later filleted or staked to be taken home for the table. Nothing is wasted, as the frames and offcuts will be later used as part of the burley trail when chasing larger fish. As much fun as this fast and furious action with school fish can be, the team have bigger things in mind. As they work the wide-ranging school of lightweight tuna, they constantly monitor the depth sounder readout, watching for the dense vertical smudges ranging up from the seabed that will herald the commencement of the next stage of operations. And finally, their vigilance is rewarded as the stylus begins to paint in a picture of thick schools of fish close to the bottom. The eager little lure-eating tuna are forgotten as the boat is carefully juggled into position right over the best of the school, and the special multi-hooked bait-catching jig rig, weighted with a heavy sinker, is spooled quickly to the seabed far below. The cause of all this activity is a google-eyed, scarlet-hued and horribly spiky little fish called a nanagai. Not much to look at, the nanagai, more affectionately known as a goat, happens to be one of the most effective and attractive live baits that can possibly offer to big yellowfin tuna, especially in the late summer and autumn of the South Coast season. Luckily, the goats are ready and willing today, and it doesn't take long to secure 3 or 4 to place in the live bait tank. The team now have their options well and truly covered. Live and dead slimy mackerel and yellowtail, live nanagai, frozen pilchards, and plenty of material with which to lay down a good long burley trail. The presence of abundant small tuna here, combined with the colour and temperature of the water, indicate that this is an ideal area in which to commence some serious fishing. So as fish pieces and pilchards are cut up and fed overboard to commence the trail that will hopefully draw big tuna towards the boat, live baits are rigged up and drifted clear of the boat, suspended under partially inflated party balloons. These live baits will be set at varying depths, from as shallow as a few metres below the surface, down to 40, 50 or even 100 metres. As effective as the live baits may be, there is another, even more deadly trump card still to be played. That ace in the hand is the use of strip baits and carefully rigged pilchards to imitate food items free-falling through the water in the burley trail. It is this technique of strip baiting, above all others, that has revolutionized fishing for giant yellowfin tuna in recent years.
Well, earlier on the bait ground we caught our slimy mackerel and yellowtail for the day. The ones that we want to use as live baits we're keeping alive in the live bait tank, and the others that we want to use as strip baits we've taken out and put on the ice. I'm just about to prepare a strip bait now to put over. We've got the burley trail flowing. Now you'll notice we use about a 9.0, 8.0 or 9.0 suicide hook. I've painted these hooks red, which is just something that I'm working with at the moment to test if there's any difference in the results between the red hooks and the ordinary silver ones. Initial reaction by the fish to them seems to be pretty good. We do seem to be getting a few more hookups on them, so it's something worth keeping in mind. Now, it's important with any kind of fishing that your hook be as sharp as you can possibly get it, and you should never put a hook in the water without touching it up. A small file like this one or a little sharpening stone is just perfect for that. Just give it a bit of a touch, always sharpening back from the point so that you don't roll the point over and break it off. Just test it with your finger. A good test for a hook point is to drag it across your thumbnail. And if it slides, it's not sharp enough. If it digs in like that one is now, it's getting sharp enough. It's critical to have a sharp hook with strip baits for yellowfin, because you only get a split second to get the hook into them. They're either hooked or they've felt the hook and rejected the bait, so you don't get too many second chances. Okay, we're going to use a slimy mackerel for the strip bait. Normally just start to take a fillet off. Cut up towards the skin, come up with a beautiful bait like that. Much the sort of bait really that you'd use for a snapper or some sort of bottom fish. They're a little larger perhaps, just enough that it's going to be able to hide the 9.0 hook. It's critical that you hide as much of the hook and the knot and the eye of the hook in the bait as possible. So I start by going through from the meat side towards the skin and coming out like that. I pull the hook completely through, just being careful not to tear it. Pull the hook right through like that, then bring it around. Don't take a half hitch or anything around the top of the bait, just bring it around so that it's got to turn around the top of the bait. And then we're going to try and hide as much of the hook in that bait as we can. And as you put the hook in, be careful to keep the curb, the offset of the hook, facing up towards you rather than back in towards the skin where it might dig in and pick up a scale. Not such a problem with this slimy mackerel, it'd probably come through that skin, but if it was a mullet or some other heavily scaled fish, it could easily dig into the scale. So keep that curb facing up. Go in somewhere near where the line came out, and the idea is to curve the bait and wind the hook into it. And we're going to try and hide as much of that hook in the bait as we can. And as you can see, because I've got my hook painted red, it's very similar in colour to this bloodline that runs down the middle of the strip bait. So it's not going to matter quite so much if a little bit of it's shown, because it's not going to look like anything alien in the bait. Same down here where you can see a little bit of a hook through the flakes of flesh there. It's not as likely to spook the fish as a silver hook is. And I'll just pull that tight. And there you have the strip bait ready to go in the water. Plenty of reflective flash, very little hook showing there, and the trace coming out of the top of it. There's a turn of trace around the top to hold it. Now that's going to be good for probably 15 or 20 minutes fishing. It's critically important that after every strip back and retrieve, that you lift the bait out of the water and have a look at it. Make sure the hook's still concealed as well as you can keep it concealed within that bait. If the point's exposed or the hook's begun to tear out of the bait, then either put a new one on or fix up the bait you've got, because it will spook yellowfin. They'll come up to the bait, they'll see that piece of exposed metal. They're not used to seeing things like that in chunks of fish flesh, and there's a very good chance they won't take it, so that's critical. Okay, with the strip bait rigged, it's time to start fishing. So we just drop it into the water alongside the boat. Now most anglers find it easiest to tuck the rod under their arm like this, back the drag off. Don't back it off completely, leave just enough drag on to prevent an overrun should a fish grab it and take you unawares. And start pulling line off into 1 or 2 foot strips. Now you may have to jiggle the rod tip a little bit to get the knots through and so on, but as soon as the bait gets into the current, it'll start pulling away under its own weight. Now the whole idea of strip baiting is never to allow the line to come tight between the bait and the reel. You should always work on keeping this little bit of slack line between the reel and the first runner. So in other words, how fast you have to strip is very dependent on the drift rate of the boat and the speed of the current. The faster the boat's drifting, or the faster the current's running, the faster you have to strip line off the reel. Today it's not running too fast, so we can just work away like this, pulling a foot or so off at a time. Not letting too much slack build up here, but not letting the line come tight either. Because as soon as the line comes tight, the bait will start to lift in the water, and then it's out of the burley trail. The whole idea of strip baiting is to keep that bait in the burley trail, so the sink rate of the bait has to be almost identical to the pieces of burley we've been throwing in. Now, when a fish takes the bait, this line will leap taut. It's an unmistakable thing. You very rarely get any other kind of bite from a yellowfin except for a very fast strike. The line will come tight, it'll pull line off the reel like that, and as quick as you can when that happens, you should grab the drag lever and push it up to strike. As we explained earlier, strike drag should be about 1/3 of the breaking strain of the line measured straight off the reel. So you push it straight up to strike, wind into the fish, and strike instantly, and hopefully you've got him.
Now begins the waiting game. The water out here is over 100 fathoms or 200 meters deep, and the fish may be anywhere between the surface and the seabed far below. Hopefully, a school will eventually cross the path of the sinking burley and will turn to track it to its source. When they do, somewhere down along that long but unbroken trail of tasty morsels, one of them will eventually encounter a chunk with a hook in it. At last, after almost 2 hours of strip baiting, a bait is seized in no uncertain manner. Line is torn from the reel and the hook pulled home solidly. The fight is on. Of course, not all the fish which take strip baits are monsters. In this case, the prize turns out to be another albacore, considerably larger than the schoolfish taken earlier on the trolling lures, but nonetheless a long way short of the big yellowfin that the boys had in mind. As the hooked albacore is pumped up, he brings with him his schoolmates, and within seconds the clear water astern of Seamaster is filled with the racing, darting steel blue bodies of big, hungry albacore. The albacore are not alone either. Among them are some mid-range yellowfin to 30 and 40 kilos. These fish are all perfect targets for some thrills and possible records on lighter 8 and 10 kilo line. On 8 kilo line, the big albacore provide plenty of thrills and tense moments before being boated. And it's hardly surprising when they turn out to be potential Australian records like this 18.1 kilo or 40-pound specimen. The power in these middleweight tuna is aptly demonstrated a few minutes later, when a 17.5 kilo fish is gaffed in the tail while still green and full of fight. In the twinkling of an eye, the expensive aluminium-handled gaff is torn from slippery hands and vanishes into the blue depths. The lessons from this little episode are clear. It doesn't take a monster, a man-sized fish, to break tackle or wreck the best-laid plans. Tuna of all weights are incredibly strong, and gaffing a lively one in the tail is not recommended. Happily, in this case, the fish wasn't lost, only the gaff. And a few minutes later, the albacore is once again led into gaffing range. But notice how even after an extended fight and one good stab with a gaff, the tuna still doesn't come quietly. Nor does our hapless gaff man seem to have learned his lesson about tail gaffing. But all's well that ends well, and another fat, fighting-fit albacore of record proportions joins its mates in the cockpit of the Seamaster. By now, the albacore bite is a hot one indeed, with most baits being grabbed a few seconds after hitting the water. Metal lures spooled deep in the water column and retrieved rapidly towards the surface are also pulling their share of strikes and helping to keep the school concentrated right under the boat. Freely drifted pilchards, carefully rigged to conceal as much of the straight pattern 6-0 or 7-0 hook as possible, are working particularly well on these fish, both while being stripped back in the manner of a cuff bait and during slow retrieves back through the school towards the boat. But pilchards are not only attractive to albacore, and as so often happens in the heat of a torrid session on middleweight fish, a bait is suddenly seized by a far larger opponent. A yellowfin tuna in the 40 to 45 kilo range has grabbed Ross Elliott's offering, and now 8 kilo line is being ripped from the reel by a far stronger adversary than even the best albacore.
Unfortunately, just as Ross had begun to win some line back after 20 tense minutes, the hook pulls, leaving a slack line, and that terribly empty feeling in the pit of the stomach, which all fishermen know and dread. That hook-up marks the end of the day's fishing, as with the sun already low in the autumn sky and a run of more than 20 kilometres back to port ahead of them, the team are unwilling to become involved in another long fight with a large fish. There's always tomorrow, and with it, the promise of big fish and bent rods. The following morning dawns crisp, clear and cold, with the promise of a fine day ahead. Tuna fishermen's weather in every way. Time on the bait ground is kept to a minimum, as the boys have plenty of burley and bait on ice from their previous day's fishing. The fisherman's grapevine is abuzz with news that the swirling warm current has licked in around Montague Island, 13 nautical miles northeast of Bermagui, off its sister port of Narooma. And being a competition day, the waters of Yellowfin Alley around the island's northern shores are certain to be busy with boats of all sizes by mid-morning. Realizing that yellowfin, especially big specimens, are not fond of boat traffic and the sound of outboard motors, John, Ross and Steve are keen to reach the fishing grounds as quickly as possible. On their arrival, they're not disappointed. The water is cobalt blue, warm, and looks extremely alive. And sure enough, the first strip bait is taken within seconds of hitting the water. The yellowfin are on.
Might rephrase that.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
We're getting close for a shot.
Lift him onto the gunnel first, hold him there for a second and then drop him. Yeah, well, it's fantastic looking water. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a few fish today. The temperature's right and the colour's good. So it feels real good.
Well down, there's no sign of colour. We'll lose him once more, I think. Mako to go with it. Oh! Gone?
Continuing his run of bad luck, Ross pulls the hook on a solid fish, but no one is overly concerned. There's sure to be more where that one came from with conditions as they are. Less than 3 minutes later, John's strip bait is nailed. He comes up tight on a good tuna, which peels 15-kilo line in several strong bursts.
Let him do it standing up.
It's the gimbal belt I'd like.
Don't go away, John, I've got it.
Got some fish in the burley.
Tight enough? Harness? You want a strip stir?
Yes, please. Not a big fish.
Prefer the nice to go back there.
You bite.
Man, here again, see? We'll get around the side before we go to the harness.
Yes. I'm going to have to go under Steve in a minute.
Harness, John?
Better?
More even though he catch it.
Lingard. Right, yeah. 25 kilos. Keep taking this time. Bit frisky. Got a little bit frisky.
After a short but hard fight, a yellowfin of just under the 40-kilogram mark is gaffed and heaved aboard. A great start to a great day.
Who's deceptive?
About 35.
There, there.
Steve is next to drop a bait over, and his weight is a short one.
You're on again, John. Righto. Hasn't had a rest from the last one yet.
What I might do is keep early.
Oh, I'm down the back here, John. I can get down easy enough. You in?
I'll take just the fin up the front.
I'll take them. Sorry, that quick before, Steve?
Had 4 one morning, but we blew through, pulled the hooks on 3 of them, pulled up here before dawn one morning with Rob Croxton, and the first 4 slip backs we got hook up. This is excellent, this stuff. Might be a slightly better fish too, he's taking a lot of line.
Good. Well, I was trying to destroy the cabin at the moment.
Doing the job there, I'll stump you, mum.
The special extra short stand-up 24-kilo rod he's using makes quick work of the 30-kilo tuna, and soon it joins John's fish on the floor of the Seamaster's cockpit.
Nice fish. See him down the depth seat. If I give a shot, I'll take it. Good one.
Just as things look set for a great run of yellowfin, the small fish move in. Several bonito and rat kingfish quickly succumbing to the heavy tackle and being tagged and released. But not all the tuna have left the area as a result of the steadily increasing boat traffic. Suddenly, during a long drift down the eastern side of the island, John Bryant hooks up on the fish everyone's been waiting for. A big yellowfin tuna, clearly in excess of 60 kilograms on 15-kilo tackle.
Far too easy. He's way out in front of us.
Come around hard lock to your right. Oh yeah, all right, yeah, well, yeah, back around the other way then.
Over the motor, John?
Yeah. Head forward, slightly to your left. That's the easiest line you'll ever get back.
You're not wrong.
Try again. He's staying up high in the water.
What? Yeah. Rather you just stay like you are.
That's perfect now.
As John loses more and more line, the big Mercuries are fired up and the boat used to track with the fish and save the hemorrhaging line load and avoid a cut-off on one of the many amateur and professional vessels now operating in this confined area. This tuna is a sprinter rather than a slugger, electing to stay high in the water and tear enormous amounts of line off against the 5 kilos of drag set on the reel. These big yellowfin that choose to run hard rather than head for deeper water and dive often come a little easier, but on 15-kilo tackle, no big tuna is easy. And this one soon has John sweating hard and aching in places that will still hurt the next day and maybe the day after that. There is nothing to do but keep the pressure on, stay with the fish and work away, hoping that the strain of the drag will eventually wear this tough adversary down enough for a gaff shot.
That's it.
Luck is on the side of the Seamaster team. During one of its many high-powered mid-water runs, the tuna has tangled its tail in the Jinkai nylon trace. Temporarily bewildered and starved of oxygen as its swimming is inhibited by the tail wrap, the tuna allows itself to be pumped towards the boat and the waiting gaff. At the last instant, Steve realizes just how big this enormous yellowfin is, but it's too late now to go for one of the big flying gaffs. Hitting the huge tuna as best he can with a standard fixed gaff, Steve hangs on grimly as Ross races back from the controls to place a second gaff and heave the fish on board. A fantastic catch on a 15-kilo line. This tuna later dragged the scales down at 91 kilos, 201 pounds on the old-fashioned scale.
Oh, he's a boss, eh? It's the one you were on your call, wasn't it?
I'll tell you what, mate, that's not very close to 90.
Jeez, he's a big fish.
He's a huge fish. Have a look at this.
Yeah, 90 kilos.
We'll call him 85 till we put him on the scale.
Jeez, John, you might have 200.
On 30?
Yeah.
In a half an hour?
It wasn't half an hour.
No, it would have been half an hour.
I'll tell you what, I kid you not, I'm hurting. Yeah. I am hurting all through the shoulders, the guts.
You're a very lucky man. I didn't tell Rip the fish would add another 2 hours on that.
Yeah.
A fish like this one commands the respect of all anglers who know and love the wide blue expanse of the offshore grounds. Today, the Seamaster crew have fished in and won a hard-fought tournament against more than 100 other boats and their crews. As well as accolades, their monster tuna has won them prestigious trophies and awards. But tomorrow and next week and next month, they will go to sea again and again, not to compete against other anglers, but simply to pit themselves in an adrenaline-pumping battle of wits and strength against game fishing's ultimate challenge, the golden standard by which all other fish are judged, the yellowfin tuna. The producers wish to thank Penn Fenwick Australia, The Complete Angler, Club Marine, Seamaster Powercat, and Jinkai.